Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Welcome back to our story with Alex, Tuna, and little Henry. In the previous episode, while most people stayed cautious and avoided the homeless man on the street, Tuna quietly shared her fruit and even her lunch banh mi with him. A small act of kindness that touched all of us. And today, we're diving into another heartwarming moment at Tuna's Fruit Corner, where a simple morning turns unexpectedly special. A moment that made Alex stop in his tracks the second he saw Tuna smile in a way he rarely gets to see. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss the next episode. Morning sunlight poured gently over the market street, slipping through the painted letters on the wooden sign. Tuna's Fruit Corner. The shop wasn't big, just a warm little space tucked between a tailor's stall and a flower shop. But every morning, it felt like the safest place Tuna had ever stood in. She slid the front door open with a soft clink. A faint, sweet scent of pomelo and mango drifted out, blending into the cool breeze. Henry, sitting in his small baby seat behind the counter, immediately kicked his tiny feet, wide awake and full of his morning energy. "Good morning, Henry," she whispered, brushing his hair. "Today we'll try to smile more, okay?" He cooed in reply, waving his hands like an excited little bird. Tuna arranged the fruit baskets on the front display, pomelos at the bottom, bright yellow mangoes on top, and red dragon fruits nestled neatly beside them. She always took her time, maybe because no one had ever given her anything beautiful before, so now she made sure everything she touched looked gentle, clean, and cared for. While setting the last basket down, she heard footsteps approaching. "Miss Tuna?" She turned. A small elderly lady stood at the entrance, leaning slightly on a wooden cane. Her hair was tied back in a thin silver bun, and she carried a woven bag that looked older than half the stalls in the market. "Yes, Grandma. How can I help you?" "I'm looking for the girl who sells fruit with honesty," the old woman said quietly. Tuna blinked. I think that might be me?" The old woman nodded, eyes softening. "Last week, I bought mangoes here. You told me one of them wasn't fully ripe and swapped it for a sweeter one. Not many young people do that now." Tuna froze for half a second. It was such a small thing, she hadn't even remembered it. The old woman continued, "I came back today to buy more, and..." She reached into her bag and pulled out a tiny cloth pouch. "This is for you." Tuna's breath caught. "Oh, no, Grandma. I can't accept gifts." "It's not a gift," the old woman interrupted softly. "It's thanks. Someone who works with a good heart deserves something kind in return." She placed the pouch into Tuna's hands with surprising firmness. Inside was a simple fabric hair tie, handmade, embroidered with tiny yellow daisies. For a moment, Tuna couldn't speak. Her fingers trembled around the soft fabric. She wasn't used to receiving kindness, much less something delicate, thoughtful, and meant just for her. A warmth spread across her chest, so sudden it almost scared her. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," the old lady smiled. "Just keep doing what you're doing." The woman bought a small basket of mangoes, smiled at Henry, who giggled loudly at her, and slowly walked away. Tuna stood still for a long moment, holding the embroidered hair tie like it was a fragile secret. She didn't realize she was smiling until she caught her reflection in the window. Henry babbled as if asking what happened. She leaned over and gently pinched his cheek. "Can you believe it, Henry?" she murmured. Someone gave Mama something pretty. She slipped the hair tie around her wrist. It felt like a tiny sun resting against her skin. Just then, the shop door opened again. A familiar voice said, "You look different today." She looked up to see Alex standing there, holding a small paper bag like he had run from somewhere in a hurry. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, hair slightly messy, breath a little uneven, like he had come straight from the farm without stopping. "Did you eat breakfast?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not yet." "Good," he grinned, lifting the bag. "Because I brought your favorite banh mi." Her chest warmed again, the second time in less than an hour. "But why are you here?" she asked, confused. "You usually don't come to the market this early." Alex walked inside, glancing around the neatly arranged shop, then at Henry, then at the small hair tie on her wrist. "I don't know," he said lightly. "I just had a feeling today would be a special morning." That made her heartbeat skip, just a little. "What happened?" he added softly. "You look happy." Tuna hesitated. Part of her wanted to hide the moment, the way she used to hide anything precious so it wouldn't be taken away. But she slowly lifted her wrist. "A customer gave this to me," she said, "just because she thought I was kind." Alex's eyes softened in a way that always made her chest tighten. "You are kind," he said simply. "I'm glad someone saw it." He reached out, gently touching the embroidered daisies with the tip of his finger, careful not to brush her skin too much. A tiny gesture, but enough to make her breath catch. "For what it's worth," he added, "it suits you." Her cheeks warmed. She quickly turned away, pretending to adjust the fruit display. "We should open the shop properly," she muttered. Alex chuckled under his breath, took Henry from the baby seat, and lifted him high. Henry squealed happily, arms flailing. His laughter bounced through the shop, filling every quiet corner. And in that moment, between the sunlight, the simple breakfast, the unexpected gift, and Alex's gentle presence, Tuna suddenly realized something. Happiness didn't always come from big events. Sometimes it arrived quietly, wrapped in a small handmade hair tie, or hidden inside a warm banh mi someone woke up early to buy for you. Alex stayed longer than he planned. He always did, without meaning to. Something about the tiny fruit shop, its warm light, the smell of fresh pomelo, the sight of Tuna quietly arranging baskets, made him forget time. And today, seeing her smile with that embroidered hair tie around her wrist, he lost track even faster. Tuna brought out a small wooden stool and placed it near the front door, arranging papayas on top. Alex held Henry on his hip, the baby's cheek pressed against his chest, soft and warm. "Henry likes it here," Alex said, bouncing him gently. "Because he's spoiled," she replied, hiding a smile. "Every customer who walks in gives him attention." "That's because he's cute." She gave him a look, half amused, half shy. The morning rush began quietly. A pair of middle-aged women came in to buy dragon fruit, chatting loudly about a wedding somewhere in town. A young man stopped by for oranges. A little girl peered through the window before running inside to wave at Henry. Each time someone interacted with her, smiled at her, thanked her, asked her for help, Tuna softened, bit by bit. Alex watched it all with a kind of quiet satisfaction. At one point, he stepped aside to let a family buy pomelos. When he turned back, he caught sight of her laughing softly at something a customer said. He froze, not dramatically, not with the shock of some big moment like the wedding dress, but with a gentler, deeper stillness. She laughed so rarely, at least in front of him. Something warm uncoiled in his chest. When the customers left, he walked up to her and asked casually, "So the hair tie is your lucky charm now?" She touched it lightly, brushing her thumb across the embroidered daisies. "Maybe." "What did she say to you, the old lady?" "That I deserved kind things," Tuna answered quietly. "And you don't think you do?" She looked down. "It just feels strange to receive things without earning them somehow." Alex shifted Henry to his other arm. "Tuna," he said softly, "not everything good has to be earned. Some things are meant to be given." She lowered her gaze again, not in sadness, but in the shy, overwhelmed way she always had when someone offered her warmth. Before he could say more, the shop bell chimed again. A man in his 30s walked in, looking flustered, carrying a crate of apples. "Sorry, these are for the shop. Mrs. Tang said you needed extra stock for the weekend." Tuna blinked. "I didn't order." Alex cleared his throat and raised a hand. "I did." She turned toward him. "You?" "I saw yesterday that the apple shelf was almost empty, and you were too tired to go to the wholesale market after closing." He said it like it was nothing, like ordering extra fruit at 6 in the morning, coordinating delivery, and paying ahead of time was the most natural thing in the world. The delivery man left. Tuna stared at the crate. "You didn't have to do that," she murmured. "I know," he said simply, "but you always take care of everything and everyone. Someone should take care of you too." She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her voice caught somewhere between her lungs and her heart. Henry suddenly reached out toward the crate, slapping his tiny palm against the apples. Both of them burst into soft laughter, like the baby had decided the moment was too serious and needed fixing. When Alex handed Henry back to her, the baby instantly grabbed the hair tie on her wrist, pulling it with curious fingers. "Henry," she scolded gently, "don't break Mama's treasure." Alex's eyebrows lifted. "Treasure, huh?" She flushed. "I didn't mean—" "You did," he said with a quiet smile. The day moved on, full of small things that stitched themselves into something bigger. A high school girl came by asking if she could take a picture of the shop because it looked cozy. A man bought pomelos and told Tuna they were the best he'd tasted in years. A mother and son stopped to admire the front display. The little boy whispered, "Mom, she looks like the nice auntie in cartoons." Each moment was tiny, but they layered gently around her like fresh fruit arranged in a neat basket. Simple, but meaningful. Around noon, when the crowd slowed and the heat softened, Tuna finally sat down behind the counter with Henry asleep in her arms. Alex placed a bottle of water beside her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, just tired in a good way. He leaned against the counter, watching her with a warmth he couldn't put into words. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "this shop suits you." "Suits me." "It looks better when you're inside," he replied without hesitation. "Customers feel it too. They come for the fruit, but they stay because of you." She lowered her gaze again, overwhelmed. Her fingers brushed the tiny daisies on her wrist. "I'm still not used to this," she confessed. "Being treated kindly, being seen." "Well," Alex said, "you might have to get used to it, because we're not stopping anytime soon." She looked up just as he said it, and for a moment they held each other's gaze, long enough for something gentle to pass between them, something wordless but steady. A breeze drifted in from the open door, carrying the scent of ripe pomelo. The hanging wind chime above the sign tinkled softly. Henry stirred, stretching his tiny arms. Tuna whispered softly to him, rocking him back to sleep. Alex watched them, mother and baby framed by warm light, a shop full of fresh fruit behind them, peace lingering in the air. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a wedding dress or a big gesture. But it was enough, more than enough. A life made of simple kindness, quiet mornings, unexpected gifts, and a happiness so gentle it could only be felt, not spoken. And maybe, Alex thought as he stood there, maybe this was the kind of happiness that lasted, because it grew slowly, because it was real, because it belonged to them, together.